So in fractions, let's look at this question 8. Working with a customary ruler. So measure the line segment in the figure to the nearest 16th of an inch. So what they want us to determine here in this problem is how far is it from here all the way out to here. So they wanted us to determine that to the nearest 16th of an inch. Now, the first thing to understand though is on a customary tape ruler, if you will, there are a lot of different measurements involved here. So let's just take a look at this 1 inch area to start with. So this 1 inch area, let's just say I blow that out and let's just assume that this now represents 1 inch. So to get into fractions, what I can do is if I cut this in half, this becomes half of this distance. So this would be like 1/2 and this would be like 1/2. So 1/2 and 1/2 would make a whole, or 1 inch. So this mark here in the middle is what's called the half-inch mark. So notice how this would be a half inch, 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 this would be a half inch. So those longer lengths are what we call the half-inch marks. So that's one scale. Another scale that's on the ruler, again, if I call this 1 inch, so if I cut this in half and then I cut each half in half, so I cut this here and cut this here. What happens now is we have what we call quarters. This is 1/4, this is 1/4, and a quarter makes the half. Then I have another quarter. So this would be like 3/4. So this would be actually the 1/4. This would be the half, and this would be the 3/4. And then if I do another quarter, 4/4 is the same thing as one whole. So 4/4 or 4/4, if you will, is the same thing as one whole inch. So these marks here are what we call the quarter marks. So this is a quarter, this is a half, this is a quarter. So this would be a quarter, this would be a half, this would be a quarter. This would be a quarter, this would be a half, this would be a quarter. So notice how, again, if you follow this, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4 is a whole inch. Now, another one they have is we can cut it in half. We can then cut each half in half, but then we can cut each of those in half. So then we have cut this in, make these a little bit longer here. So then we have this little tick mark here, halfway. This little tick mark here is halfway. This little tick mark here is halfway. This little tick mark here is halfway. And then we're out here to the 1 inch area, if you will. So notice how we now cut this into 8 equal pieces. So if we cut it in 8 equal pieces, each piece is called an eighth. So this would be an eighth here. This would be an eighth, but an eighth would be the same thing as 1/4. And then this would be another eighth. And then another eighth would make then, let me try to do that a little bit better. So if I move another eighth, this gets me to what we call 3/8. So this would be 1/8. There's 2/8 the same thing as a quarter. Then we have 3/8. And then if I do another eighth, so that's now 4/8, or we call that a half. And then if we do another eighth, that's going to be 5/8. And then if we do another eighth, that's going to be 6/8, but we also call that 3/4. And then we have what's called 7/8. And then if we do another one, 8/8 would be the same thing as one whole inch. So these smaller markings are now called the eighth marks. So this would be an eighth, this would be a quarter, this would be 3/8, this would be a half, there's 5/8, there is then the 3/4, then there's the 7/8, and then you're to an inch. So again, these marks here are the eighth marks. So 1/8, 3/8, 5/8, 7/8. So notice how they go by odds. So this is now going to be like 2 and 1/8, 2 and 3/8, 2 and 5/8, 2 and 7/8, and then we're at 3 inches. So then I have 3 and an eighth if I go out to that spot there, and I could keep doing that. So the tape measure has quarter marks, half marks, and also it has eighth marks. And then it goes one more. So we can cut it in half. Then we can cut each half in half. Then we can cut each of those in half, and this becomes our eighths, if you will. Make these a little bit longer. And then we have that. And then this is considered our inch mark, if you will. If we just, like I said, we're just blowing this part up, making it bigger so we can kind of see it. So then if I cut each one of these marks in half, we have these little bitty tick marks. Tick mark there, tick mark there, a tick mark there, tick mark there, tick mark there. These little bitty tiny tick marks we have. So notice now this is actually cut into 16 pieces. So this is like 1/16, 2/16, 3/16, 4/16. Then we have 5/16, 6/16, 7/16. Then we have 8/16, 9/16, 10/16, 11/16, 12/16, 13/16, 14/16, 15/16, and 10/16 would get us out here to the inch mark. So 16/16 is the same thing as 1 inch. So these bitty, itty bitty ones are then what we call the 16th marks. So this would be like 1/16. Then this would be our 1/8. This would be then our 3/16. Then this would be our quarter. And then we have our 5/16. Then this 1/8 becomes then this 3/8 over here. And then we have 7/16, and then 8/8 is our half. Then we have 9/16, and then we have our, so 3/8, this would be our 5/8 mark. And then we have 9, that'd be 11/16. And then this is our quarter mark, that would be 1/4. This is our half there, if you will. Then this would now be our 3/4 mark. And then after 11/16, we would have 13/16. But this is an eighth mark, so 5/8, 7/8, if you will. And 13/16 becomes then 15/16. So notice how the 16ths also go by odds. So 1/16, 3/16, 5/16, 7/16, 9, 11/16, 13/16, and 15/16. So if I look at my ruler, these itty bitty marks are actually what we call the 16th marks. So that's going to be like 1/16, 3/16, 5/16, 7/16, 9/16, 11/16, 13/16, 15/16. So if we put this all together, if we want to measure this line segment to the nearest 16th, notice that we have 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches. And then notice how this is an itty bitty mark, that's a 16th. But notice how this is a 1/16, therefore that's a 3/16. So that's going to be 3 and 3/16 of an inch. So 3 plus 3/16, or we just smash it together and create what we call a mixed number. So 3 and 3/16 of an inch. Now, we also could say there's 16/16 per inch, so 16, 32, 48. So in other words, if you multiply 16 times 3, that tells you how many 16ths are in 3 inches. And then you have a 3 more, so 48 plus 3 would be 51. So I could also write this as 51/16 of an inch. So 51/16 is the same thing as 3 and 3/16 of an inch. So we could write those either way. 3 and 3/16 is called a mixed number. The 51/16 is described as an improper fraction. So an improper fraction is a fraction that is greater than 1. So one, or I should say one or greater, is improper. So that's what's going on a customary ruler is there's a lot of different measurements on there. So if you understand by memory that each height of a tick mark represents a different unit of measurement. The shortest ones are the sixteenths. The next one is the eighth, and then there's the quarter, then there's the half, and then you just got to remember they all go by odds. So 1/8, 3/8, 5/8, 7/8, 1/4, 3/4. Notice how there's only that one half because one half and one half will get you to 1 inch. And then of course the baby ones, 1/16, 3/16, 5/16, 7/16, 9/16, 11/16, 13/16, and 15/16. So hopefully that gives you a kind of review of a tape measure. So again, if you're in construction, you need to really understand how to read a ruler. So I'll leave it with that. So